had never heard someone talk about the foot and its impact on the whole kinetic chain. I'd never heard someone talk about the foot from a biomechanical perspective, and that was when the curtain got drawn back. No one is talking about this. No one is looking at the foot from this perspective, and everyone needs to be.
Dr. Jenifer.
Yes, that's me.
Thank you so much for having us here today.
Yeah.
It's really nice to finally meet you. We've interacted over emails for
10 million emails later.
Exactly. So thank you for having us.
Yeah, I'm excited.
We're so curious to learn about your story and your journey into Gait Happens. And then from there, just understanding a little bit more about your perspectives. You've also recently introduced your new foot health kit.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that and we'll go from there. So I believe you went to school for undergrad in kinesiology and sports medicine. And then after that, you did your Doctor of Chiropractic as well. So a lot of schooling. But what got you down that path?
I was always very active as a kid and lots of team sports. I mean, I played softball, volleyball, basketball. I'm a black belt in Taekwondo. I was going from one thing to the next, so constantly moving. And I just saw, a life where movement was so important. And so when I was trying to decide where I wanted to go to school and what I wanted to do, I really always loved the idea of exercise, sports medicine, physical therapy, something along those lines. So I decided to go the kinesiology route, which is the study of movement, essentially, with that sports medicine concentration. And then when I was in school, at the time, there's different scopes of practice of what you can and can't do in different professions. And so I was looking at, okay, what profession do I want to go into? And I discovered chiropractic. And really, at the time, it had a very broad scope of practice because people could come straight to you and not have to have a referral from a physician. And so I liked the accessibility of it. I liked that I could be hands-on and be working with movement. And so I really went down that road of looking at more movement-based chiropractic or sports chiropractic. And that was kind of how I ended up down that road. But what's interesting about how I got to Gait Happens and how I got into feet, it's kind of a funny story because I hated feet. Okay. I hated feet. I had chronic shoulder pain. I wanted to specialize in shoulders and throwing athletes because my main history was I was a softball player. So I played softball in college. And I went to this course from Rock Tape, which is a kinesiology tape company, and to learn how to tape. And all I cared about was learning how to tape shoulders. But the instructor who was teaching the course kept talking about feet. And it just so happened that she focused on foot and gait. And I had never heard someone talk about the foot and its impact on the whole kinetic chain, right? Mm-hmm. I'd never heard someone talk about the foot from a biomechanical perspective. And I've always loved physics and biomechanics. And that was when the curtain got drawn back. And I was like, no one is talking about this. No one is looking at the foot from this perspective, and everyone needs to be. Mm-hmm. And that was where I really started diving deep. And the instructor of that course was Dr. Courtney Conley, who then became my business partner at Gait Happens. And now our mission is to educate as many people as possible, both for themselves and other health professionals of how much impact we can have by starting to improve function from the ground up.
Yeah. That's a really interesting story. I also learned that you did an internship in Jamaica.
I did.
And you were working with athletes there.
Mm-hmm.
How was that experience like? And would you say that got you thinking a bit more about gait in any way because it was with athletes, or?
It did. I had taken that course with Courtney before I went to Jamaica.
I see.
So I already was getting known as the foot person kind of in our student clinic at the time.
Okay.
So that was fun. And then when I went to Jamaica, we were working with a lot of track and field athletes. So mostly high school, which high school there is very, very competitive. And they're basically being trained for the Olympics from high school. So we were working with a ton of high school athletes. We actually got to do the medical tent at the high school nationals, which you would have thought you were at the Olympics. I mean, there was LED light shows and all kinds of crazy stuff, which was awesome. But those athletes were absolutely amazing. So it was a really great experience to kind of take what I had been learning more from like a theoretical perspective up to that point, and really applying it with athletes and saying like, here's how we can improve your function from the ground up. And then also working with different, hands-on modalities
I
at that
see.
point.
So I had just assumed that maybe your work there, I was trying to connect the dots.
Yeah.
And I was like, maybe the work there got you more
Got me
interested in the
here.
feet, but it's actually that you became exposed to the feet and the
Yeah.
connection through rock tape and the
Yeah.
course that you did. And then you took that knowledge there, and I'm assuming added a new dimension to how they were thinking about performance.
Exactly.
I also understand that you have a little bit of background in retail and in
Oh,
hospitality.
yeah. Yep.
People who know you that are watching this or listening to this probably don't know that.
No, I don't think I've ever talked about that
Right.
in this arena before. So I'm excited to see where this is going.
Yeah, and so my question is, my curiosity is, how would you say, if any, that experience, interacting in a customer service and an operations perspective, how has that affected the way you operate in your practice today?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think you learn to read people, right? I think that's when you're working with customer service. So I worked in retail. I also worked mostly in restaurants. So I worked my way up from hostess to restaurant manager when I was in college. And, you really learn to read people. You learn to try to be positive and to connect with people. And there's always something, not always, but most of the time there's something that you can do to make someone smile, right? And I think that is something that I bring to the patient interaction in my office. We were having a conversation earlier about meeting the person where they're at. And every single person that comes through my doors is treated as an individual, right? They're not treated like, they don't walk in and it's like, oh, it's another case of plantar fasciitis. Oh, it's another bunion. Here's X, Y, and Z. It's Joey that came in. Oh, it's Jenifer that came in. And it's what's happening in their life and how is it affecting it and how can we best support them and improve their function at the same time. So what I mean by that is, let's say two people come in the doors and they both have the same complaint. They both have bunions, for example, right? One of them is much more exercise oriented. They go to the gym constantly. They like having a plan. They might be a little bit more type A. And then the other one is a new mom and she doesn't have a lot of time. She's got a lot of stress going on. She really wants to feel better. Her feet are stopping her from doing whatever it is that she wants to do with her family, but she doesn't have the time to sit down and do the exercises, right? One of them might get a plan that involves bands and sitting down and having targeted exercises for those muscles. And another one might have something that's more movement oriented. Let's focus on the shoes and the footwear and the toe spacers and getting you moving and strengthening your feet in a different way that you can integrate with your life. And I think, kind of going back to your question, it's that read the person and create an individualized experience that's going to help get them to their goals.
Yeah, it is individuals at the end of the day, right? With different circumstances and different structures in their body, different past experiences. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Why do you think that the feet have been so neglected? Do you have a perspective on why? Because, I'll share my experience.
Yeah.
When I broke my hip and then going through physical therapy, a very long physical therapy journey that was. But the truth is, not once did we talk about the lower extremity. Now I look back and I'm curious, why was that the case? It was never ever a focus. It was really focused, isolated on the hips and the low back. Do you have a sense of why it's been overlooked?
I don't know. Why is a hard question,
Yeah.
right? But I do think traditionally in the musculoskeletal professions, right? And I like to use that broad term because there's so many different professions that can work with us, whether it's physical therapy, physiotherapy, chiropractor, you name it. A lot of the musculoskeletal professions have a very protocol-oriented experience, or that's kind of what we're taught in school is like, oh, it's this, then you do X, Y, Z. And that's also, it makes things easier. It's easier when you can say that like A plus B equals C. It's a very easy formula to follow. And when you start to try to navigate each person individually, it can be overwhelming. It can be hard. It can be a new experience and you can get it wrong. It's a little scary sometimes. So I think thinking outside of the box is more challenging, but it's definitely becoming more widespread, I think, in the last even 5 years, especially as the general population is asking more questions, right? We're becoming more aware as a health consumer. So people are doing their own research and they're asking the questions and saying, hey, is this connected to that? And I really applaud that. So I think the paradigm is changing, but we come traditionally from a very isolated perspective. And so nobody was really looking at how it was all connected and how that applies to your everyday movements. And that's what starts with the feet.
I'm sure you're right. It is a difficult question. It's hard to tell what the reason is for that, but it does make sense what you've said, which is, because it's less convenient to look at things holistically.
Yeah.
Or it requires more effort. There's a lot that it's easier to just isolate.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people out there, and I talk about foot health now, but if you had met me 4 years ago, I didn't know
you were like me back before rock tape.
I didn't know about minimal footwear. I didn't know about anything about the feet. I didn't know about how important it is. So for people who are new to all of this, or maybe are having issues up the chain, how would you describe why foot health matters?
Yeah.
What's the importance of it, and how does it relate to how the rest of the body moves? And even to things like, pain relief, performance, and what is that role really? Why is it important?
Yeah, it's a great question. So from a static perspective, right? It's hard to be static when you're on a moving board, but from a static perspective, that's an easy way to think about it, because if you think about like a building, it needs to have a strong foundation, right? And I think that that's kind of the image that gets used a lot, is like your feet are your foundation. But I also think that can be misconstrued, because traditionally people used to think like, oh, I have a flat foot, or I have a high arch and all these things. And a lot of that's been disproven, because their feet come in different shapes. And it's not just about the static image, it's about dynamic movement. But dynamic movement starts at the feet. Every step that you take, every time you shift your weight, it's all affected by how your feet are moving and how strong they are to adapt to the different surfaces and propel you forward. So I like talking about walking because it's one of the most common movements that we do. So, that's why we focus on like foot mechanics in gait being how you walk, because it's so functional. We're all walking. And so when you think about when you take a step, the first thing that connects with the earth is your foot. And now we start to accept that load. So we have to be able to absorb the shock of hitting the ground. And then we have to be able to adapt and stiffen the foot to propel us forward. And if we can't do these things effectively, we're going to have to find it from somewhere else, right? If I can't absorb shock very well, that shock can travel up to the knee, the hip, the back, right? If I don't have strong feet and I don't propel very well, maybe then I need to pull myself forward using my hips, and I might have tight hips. It's looking at how we're moving and what we might be compensating for, but starting that journey from the ground up. And I say from the ground up because I'm not just looking at the foot. I am looking at what's happening at the foot, the ankle, the knee, the hip, the spine, because it all works together.
Yeah, like you said, it's the foundation, right?
Yeah.
And it's all connected. So a movement at the feet then travels to the knees, to the hips.
Exactly.
That affects the back. And, on the topic of footwear, right? That's directly connected. You're wearing shoes with heels and extra cushion and narrow fronts, toe boxes. That then constrains that function, puts you in a non-ideal position. Right, and then that affects up the chain.
Our feet have 33 joints.
Yeah.
It's a very simple fact that we have 33 joints in the foot. Does that sound like something that was made to be rigid?
Not at all.
No, right? You look at the design. And that's why, again, I started to become obsessed with the foot, because if you think about it from like a mechanical engineering perspective, it's so adaptable to the different surfaces. And yet somewhere along the line, we decided it needed to be in this very stiff environment and never allowed to move. And that just doesn't compute for me, right? And of course, there's going to be exceptions. There's, especially people that have had surgeries or have congenital anomalies and things like that. There's always going to be exceptions. But for the majority of people, we should be encouraging our feet to move and adapt, not trying to restrict them from that movement.
And education is key.
Yes.
Right? So education has been a critical part of your personal experience, right?
Yeah.
How many years of school have you done?
A million. 8 years of college,
Wow.
And then whatever comes before that.
Yeah. And then I'm assuming you've done some continuing education
absolutely.
stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Never stop learning. You never stop learning.
Right. And then on top of that, you're also teaching actively, right? As
Yeah.
part of Gait Happens.
Yep.
The courses that you have
Yeah.
directed to healthcare practitioners so
Yeah,
that they
we
can
have both.
pass that
So
on.
we have programs that are for everyone. So like if we're constantly trying to help people take charge of their own bodies. So we have things that we teach for, the everyday person, but then we want this information in the hands of more practitioners because together we all help more people, right? I can only see so many patients in a week. And so by training other healthcare professionals, now I expand that reach by not just my patients, but their patients and their patients and their patients. And so we do certification courses for other healthcare professionals as well.
Very cool. What would you say is a misconception or, something that really stands out about the feet? Now there's a lot of information out there.
Yeah, there is.
And there's a lot of perspectives. I've heard both sides, even if you look down into barefoot shoes, I've heard positives and negatives.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even say negatives, I would say just alternate perspectives on it.
Yeah.
But is there something that you see in your patients and what they understand and the feedback out there that's like, this is something that people are just getting wrong about the feet and how the feet function?
I still hear I have flat feet, I have high arches, and that's inherently bad. I think that's the number one thing that needs to go away. Like you don't walk into a doctor's office and say, I have all my problems because I'm short, right? Like we have different types of feet. And as long as they are both mobile and strong, it doesn't matter what your starting point is. You can have a higher arch type and still be mobile. You can have a lower arch type and still be strong, right? We have a great example over there. My husband, Dr. Mark Perez, has some of the flattest feet that, I use as an example with my patients where I'm like, this can be a very strong functional foot, right? And so we need to stop looking at shape and start looking at function. And that, I think, is the biggest conversation that I'm still having with patients to this day.
Very interesting. We have an additional thing in common there because my partner has the flattest feet I've ever seen in my life. And shout out to my partner for that. She's going to hate that. Okay, so you're right. And then I've also heard this that, the foot takes different shapes.
Yes.
It just makes sense that you focus it on strength and mobility.
Yeah.
For someone who is new to all of this, right? Whether they're just trying to improve their performance or they're trying to alleviate some pain or they're just trying to think about their future self, what would be something easy and small that people can start doing today to begin on that foot health journey?
Buy a Movemate.
I would agree.
But really, I think adaptability is key. Having something like this is an amazing tool that even just a few minutes at a time to be able to move your feet into different positions is so foreign to so many people, right? A starting point even before that is take your shoes off. There are certain cultures where shoes are off always in the house, and then there's us in the United States where I have patients coming in talking about their house shoes, and I'm like, no, there's people that the second they get out of bed until throughout their day and then right back in bed, their feet never touch the ground barefoot. And so just taking your shoes off and letting your feet feel the ground from so many different perspectives, from neurological, right? We have thousands of sensory nerve endings underneath our feet that need to feel the ground, right? That's how our brain knows where we are in space. It matches what it's receiving from our eyes, what it's receiving from our ears, from our vestibular system, and from our proprioceptive system in our sensory nerve endings, in our feet, in our joints. It matches all of those to tell us where we are in space. But when we're constantly shoving our feet with a surface underneath them, it's like trying to drive with a cloud over your windshield, right? It's like you don't know where you are, so you don't function very well. So from a neurological perspective, from a mobility perspective, letting your feet move and not being stuck in one position, letting those 33 joints actually get motion. And then from a strength perspective, because when you're in a shoe that's so well designed, right? Like the design world has come so far and it's so well designed that it does all the work for you. you never have to do any of the work. The more the shoe does, the less the foot does. And so now when you take away the shoe, the foot actually has to do the work. And now you're actually using those 4 layers of muscles that are in your foot to propel yourself forward. So from all of these different perspectives, just taking off your shoes and letting your feet move is step 1.
I love that. It's so simple and it's so low-hanging fruit.
Exactly.
Anyone can do it at any time.
Yeah.
And then from there, you can begin to escalate and
build
try
up
new
slowly,
things.
right?
And
Like, I'm
build
not
up,
saying like take off your shoes and go run a marathon.
Right.
Like, let's be smart. There's a transition with all of this. And think about like going back to those 4 layers of muscles, right? The foot is a very, very strong structure, but it is made of muscle, and muscle atrophies when you don't use it. So if you have been in shoes for a very long time that have been doing all the work for you, you need to build up slowly. You would not go into the gym and on day 1 expect to squat 300 pounds, right? We need to let the muscles build up slowly. So just start with 5 minutes, start with 10 minutes, and then build up to maybe you do your 30-minute walk barefoot or in a minimalist shoe. And then you start to build up slowly over time to let those muscles grow.
Let's talk about your foot health kit and how it fits in this journey.
Kind of going back to what I said earlier about like there's certain patients that really respond well to specific exercises, and there's certain patients that respond well to more lifestyle changes. And not that I'm not doing both for everybody, but this kit basically came of the same tools we kept recommending to our patients over and over and over again, right? We need mobility, we need strength, and 9 times out of 10 we need space between our toes, because all of us have been wearing mainstream footwear that has been restricting our foot for a very long time. And so what we made with the foot health kit was all of those things in one convenient kit. So it comes with toe spacers to help restore the space between the toes and start getting some more of that movement back. It comes with a resistance band to help you strengthen the foot, and you can actually do targeted exercises to strengthen the muscles that we talked about. It comes with a really nice massage ball. This thing is probably my favorite part of the whole kit. It's got these nice little bumpy textures on them, and it's just squishy enough.
I was just going to say it's hard but soft at the same time.
Exactly, yeah. So it's not super uncomfortable, but it's great for massaging the muscles underneath. So we're working on that mobility, we're working on the strength all at the same time. And then we also actually designed toe strengtheners that we patented, which are designed to help you strengthen the muscles that will help spread your foot back out.
Is that what you get where there's an elastic and then it just kind of, you can pull it apart and...
Exactly. So if you've seen the hand strengtheners that are pretty common, they're common here with climbers and so with rock climbers, but we did the same thing for the foot. Okay. So essentially it's a band that goes around each of the toes, and now you have resistance for the toe motion. But keep in mind, it's not just strengthening the toes. The muscles that move the toes live in the bottom of the foot. Okay. So we're using the toes to strengthen the whole foot.
I did not realize that this is actually patented. To me, when I saw it, I'm like, okay, that's a toe spacer, or something to just put some space in between. But it's actually got that element where it helps you to expand and actually exercise.
I like to think of toe spacers as kind of bowling bumpers, right? Okay. If you go bowling and they have the bumpers that come up that keep you from going into the gutter, right? So the toe spacers sit between the toes and kind of help maintain alignment and keep your toes from going closer together. So they're more of like a passive assistance, but I like to use them when we're walking and moving around. The strengtheners are a resistance band. So they're stretchy. So they actually are going to pull your toes together, and then you have to resist them to spread back out. So it's about passive mobility versus active mobility and active spreading.
I would love to have those toe spacers on this Movemate.
Right?
I mean, the spreaders, because I could actually work that well.
We should play with it.
Yeah, we should. 100%, we will.
Yeah.
And people who are using this kit, is there like a set of instructions or way to use it? How do they?
Of course, we're not going to leave them hanging.
Of course.
Truly, education is our passion. So the kit comes with a QR code, and then there's exercises in there on how to use every single piece of the kit. There's multiple exercises, a way to get started. And then if that's not enough for you, we have a whole 12-week Fit Feet program that's like week by week programming if you want to strengthen your body from the ground up. So we got all of it.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. So sedentary lifestyles is a big problem that we are tackling.
Yeah.
I'm willing to bet that half the people watching or listening to this right now
are sitting down,
have a desk job in general.
Yeah.
are sat for 7, 8, 9 hours a day. Is there a direct connection that could be drawn in any way, or is it's just a general impact on our musculoskeletal health, and then part of that is the feet?
I think both. I mean, it's definitely a direct effect on general musculoskeletal health, right? Our bodies are designed to move. And so when we're sitting in one position for so long, we're not getting motion to our muscles. I mean, even if you just think from a cardiovascular perspective, especially from the legs. So, fun fact, the veins don't have pumps. So the way that we actually pump blood back to our heart from our legs is through muscular contraction, right? So we actually get kind of pooling of blood flow, if you will, the longer we sit down. So even just from a cardiovascular perspective, we need movement in order to keep the blood flowing, to pump the blood back to our heart. So, I mean, there's so many, that's why I love the body. There's so many layers to this. There's the musculoskeletal, there's the neurological, there's cardiovascular benefits. But from a movement perspective, it all comes back to, I think, use it or lose it.
Right.
It's really that simple. It's the golden rule of the body. Use it or lose it. So if we're sitting down constantly, we're not using our mobility, we're not using our muscles, and then eventually they will start to atrophy. The joints will start to stiffen and things like that. So the more we can integrate even just a little bit of movement throughout our day, it can make a really big difference. Like I have at home, in my home office, a sit to stand desk.
Okay.
Right? Because I'm also realistic. Like there's days where I'm like, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to bust out 2 hours of work right now, right?
Absolutely.
But I like having the option of my desk going up and down. So I sit down for that meeting and then I get up, that's where I keep my Movemate is at my home office. And then I stand up, I knock out some stuff between meetings, and then I'm just constantly changing position. And I think that's really the key is, sitting's not the devil, standing's not the devil. We need to integrate movement throughout our day.
Absolutely. In fact, we don't even like the statement, sitting is the new smoking.
Yeah.
Because it's too blanket.
Yeah.
It then suggests that there's, sitting is bad and therefore this other thing, standing, is good.
Yeah.
But the reality is what you've pointed out, which is variety and constantly changing. In fact, your next posture is your best posture.
Yep, there you go.
Your next move is your best move.
Yep.
And so variety is key. So how have you actually integrated Movemate into your desk? So what are your cues to use it? When you get on, how long do you
Leave
use
it where I can see it.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds so simple, right? But that's honestly one of the things I'm constantly telling my patients, because everybody has the best intentions. They buy the thing, or they, have the exercises and they want to do the thing, and then we just don't end up doing it. And it's because our lives are full and they're busy and we have other priorities, and that's okay. But the number one thing that you can do to boost your own compliance, right, with whatever the goal is to put it where you will see it.
Yeah.
So my Movemate sits in my office, like here's my desk. It's right there when I'm not using it. And then that way, when I go to stand up, I take a bathroom break, I come back and I'm like, oh, I should put that over there and then I should stand on it, Because if I don't, it used to be downstairs because my son also likes to play with it. And so it used to be downstairs and I realized I wasn't really using it while I was working because it out of sight, out of mind. But the second I moved it back upstairs to where my office is, I started using it again.
Absolutely. The more accessible it is, the less friction there is, the easier it is to incorporate any habit.
Yeah.
Now it's been time, because this is, I think, May of 2023.
Yeah.
Right, when you first got it. But how would you describe that first impression? And then how would you also explain, how it feels to use it habitually in the workday? Like, what's that difference versus not using it? But also starting with, what was your first impression?
Well, my first impression was when I got on it, because like when you twist it a certain way, you're also actually stretching your calves.
Right.
And so I was kind of just playing with it to see what the motions were. And I was like, my right calf is significantly tighter than my left calf.
Right.
So it actually helped me kind of discover some new kind of things about my mobility and my strength. I actually got a little sore in my calves when I first started using it because you're constantly using that pumping motion and going. So like this motion is plantar flexion, which comes from our calves. Even though we're not propelling up into a calf raise, you're still pressing down. But in this, I don't know, I just really like it. It's a very fluid motion. So that was kind of my original experience with it. And now it's just become, like the fidget spinners. Yeah. It's just like, it helps me focus. It's like, I like being able to be fluid with my body. I like feeling the motion through my feet. It kind of mimics that feeling you get when you walk through sand, right? There's a reason that walking through sand feels so nice, and it's because you're getting stretching through all of the muscles and all of the joints and just getting through all of the motion of the foot. So I really like the wave motion to it because that's what it feels like to me.
Okay.
It's also nostalgic because I'm from Orange County, California originally, so.
Okay. Wow, that's an awesome review. Now as we wrap up, I'm curious to learn what the future of Gait Happens looks like. You know, aside from the foot health kit, which has just recently been launched.
Yeah.
What does the evolution of Gait Happens look like for you?
It's a great question. I mean, our mission has always been to change the world. And I think that's something that we have in common. And I feel like it's at our fingertips, you know, and not just us at Gait Happens, but us as an industry, as a movement industry and a natural movement industry where we're really trying to empower people to move better, move well, move more often, and change lives, you know, like I'm lucky because when I work one-on-one with patients, I get to see each of their stories and I get to see them get back to doing the things that they love. And that keeps me passionate. So that's really exciting. But from what does the future hold? Right now, definitely trying to get the tools to the people. Okay. So we were very passionate when we created the foot health kit. We wanted to be simple, effective, accessible, like all of the things that could make this easy for somebody. And now it's a matter of, you know, this was started with Courtney and I doing virtual consultations on the side, just trying to reach more people. So, you know, we don't have a business background. We're both clinicians. And so it's trying to figure out the operations to expand, to get these tools to more people. But in the long run, it's about helping more people move around the world. So really trying to expand our education and expand our tools so that more people can take advantage of them.
And you know, like you said at the beginning, there's only so many people you can reach yourself.
Yeah.
And so I love that you're thinking about how can we reach people globally, because at the end of the day, we all have bodies, and the general way in which the bodies move and what the bodies need is very similar, although there's uniqueness and nuance with each individual. And so it makes sense to want to spread this to other practitioners so that they could then impact and bring your teachings and your learnings and exercises and tools to more people. Yeah. I love that. That pretty much concludes this.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for your time and for the insight.
Thank you for having me. This is fun.
Yeah.
I get to just hang out and move and talk. And no, this is what I love. I love, you know, any opportunity that I have to try to get the message out there. I truly appreciate, because that's how we help more people.
Absolutely.